Good morning, it's Judge Pottage here doing this week's Judge's Duels. I'm also going to do a review of the weekend action, cover what happened on HHV the Judge. Doing this all on my own because Si's still away, he's having a well-earned break. He keeps telling me well-earned every time I speak to him. I believe him, millions wouldn't. Anyway, on to cracking on with things. First thing was, we did HHV the Judge, or so I should say I did. And we were covering the 205, the Rendlesham, on Friday. And we thought between us the front two were taking on. And we were right. They were both out the frame. Earn River and Green Book. Green Book with a penalty, and he'd run poorly at the meeting the year before. He didn't run very well. And Earn River basically was the same horse as Itchy Feet, but available at half the price. And he was out the frame. Size selection, Ashdown Lad, ran an okay race. I do think there may be bigger races later on in the season for him. I wouldn't necessarily be put off what he achieved here. Perhaps things weren't run to suit, as this race wasn't well run, and they ran into the teeth of a headwind turning into the home straight. My selection, Itchy Feet, led for most of the way and traded at 1 to 5 in running and looked sure to win. And like all good things, my second choice, always away at the moment, were Cool, came and picked him up over the last. And if you listen to the video, hopefully you made a few quid somehow along the way. But we were right but wrong. That's what can happen in gambling sometimes. Anyway, Si's selection, his selection, his first duel and his only duel. I'm going to do a review, like I say. We might as well start at the beginning, doing it in chronological order. And his one was Springwell Bay, winner of the first race at Ascot, the 120. He thinks this is a horse that could be lined up for one of the festivals later in the season, not at Cheltenham, but at Aintree or Punchestown. And I tend to concur with him. I thought this was an impressive performance. He had really good bumper form in Ireland when he got beat by Adamantly Chosen, who's run well since in Grade 1s. And I do see this horse being very competitive in them, and you probably should get a decent price. So I do agree with him. This is a horse for your tracker. So put him in Springwell Bay. I do think there was a couple in that race that's worth looking at, possibly for handicaps going forward. The main one being Marty Bird, who basically was ridden with the decent horses in this race and dropped away late on, and he was well beaten. But I think he showed that he had a bit of ability there, and I can see him getting a decent mark. I also think Townhill's one to follow going forwards. Like I say, there's a couple of handicappers in that race. Not Jules, but keep an eye on them, because that race might work out form-wise, because, like I say, Attica won at Cheltenham, and Persian Time won a decent race at Ascot when he got given the race by Master Chewy, but he ran well in the Betfair Hurdle a couple of weeks ago, so I do think this is good form, so keep an eye on it. That's good form going forwards. We've also got to cover the fact that we've had a couple of duels win from previous editions, and the size one was Oscar Elite, backed in from 9s to 6s, and that wasn't an obvious duel that day because he was well beaten in the old Hennessy, the Ladbroke or Coral, whatever it's called these days, but he fancied Oscar Elite as one to follow, and here we are 2 runs later, back from 9s into 6s, winning a Grade 2, so that was a fantastic shout. Well done, Si. My one here was Captain Ord, and I ended up tipping up Phoenix Way. I had 2 duels in this race, and as so what happens, it's so frustrating. But Phoenix Way being an Ascot specialist, I went for him. He ran a good race, quite a solid race. He just got run out of the places. But I should have known better than to take Christian Williams on a big field Saturday handicap. And Captain Orr was the one that obliged here, winning convincingly from Neon Moon. Nice race going forwards. I didn't actually think there was anything really for the tracker from that race. Riders on the Storm may be back in trip when he runs fresh again. But for me, that's just a race to be reviewing for just for the future, but not for the tracker. My first one for the tracker ran in the 3 o'clock, and I like the run here of, he says, the Dan Skelton horse. There we go. I'll get there too friendly. Sorry about that. Not so well organised as I'd like to be. He finished 4th. Once again, he pulled quite hard, and he did finish reasonably well again. And it's not the fact he's pulling and not getting home. He did exactly the same on his previous start. And I do think there's a decent handicap in this horse, because he goes on good to soft and good ground. Preferably sort of the same kind of going and terrain that he's been running on recently. I wouldn't want to back him on really soft ground. But he was running in decent juvenile company last year. And horses like Impulsive One have been winning handicaps, and he wasn't finishing too far behind him. He's hit the frame behind Sonagino at Huntingdon, and once again he was just out the places here in a good race here at Ascot. For me, there's a decent pot in him, so keep him in your tracker. Too Friendly from Dan Skelton. He's definitely one to keep an eye on. The next one for me, for the jewels, if you like, running the 4:10, and that was won by a horse called Thomas Moore, and that has Frank the Challow form, which Hermes Allen won. If it's in the likes of You Wear It Well, Passing Well, Marble Sands, and now Thomas Moore absolutely bolting up here in a handicap. It's a good run, but I like the run of Infal. Even though he was well beaten in this, he finished 5th. It looked quite a poor run, but he absolutely smashed the 4th or 5th hurdle, and his jumping wasn't fluent throughout pretty much, and he made a mistake at the same hurdle as they turned into the home straight. He would have hit the frame because without that extra mistake, but if you consider that was a pretty bad error early on, and he's still nearly placed, I think this was a good run. This horse finished 2nd in the final of this series last year at Haydock, and if returning to that race, that's a valuable event. I can see him running very well in that again later in the year. So keep him in your tracker too. That's Infal. My other jewel ran at Haydock, and we're just going to get to that. That run at Haydock. Boom, 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 boom. That was in the 3. It was in the 3:18. No, it wasn't. It was in the graded race there, the novice hurdle, the Albert Bartlett novice hurdle. And interestingly, there were 3 races over the same trip on the card, and you had the Pertemps qualifier won by Johnson's Blue, and obviously the race we covered earlier, the Wakul race. But the novice hurdle race was running a much faster time than either of those, and I think that could end up being good form. We haven't really seen too many decent staying novices throughout the season so far. And interestingly, the first 2 home here, Making Your Mind Up and Collector's Item, came 2nd in a 4-horse race at Kempton previously. So you wouldn't have thought necessarily that was great form going forwards. But once again, we're going to talk about Hermes Allen again, because Collector's Item finished behind Hermes Allen at Cheltenham. So once again, another bit of franking of the form, but a different form line this time. So Making Your Mind Up beat Collector's Item. But the horse for me to take out of this race, because I thought he looks a nice chasing prospect as well next season, and that was the King of Ryhope. Once again, a Dan Skelton horse. This horse is his only second run over hurdles. He won at Exeter on his debut, and he was also a winner of a point-to-point. Wait, I was right. I get it right. It's his 3rd run over hurdles. Sorry, yeah. He also won a point-to-point in Ireland last year. And like I say, got beat at Carlisle on his debut in heavy ground. Then he won an Exeter novice hurdle, and this was a big step up from those particular races. And he finished just 3 or 4 lengths behind 2 horses that have been running well throughout this season. And I think there's a lot more improvement in this horse compared to the front 2 there. And we all know that Paul Nicholls likes to chase, and obviously Making Your Mind Up looks like that type of horse. But as they turned into the home straight, the King of Ryhope was going better than anything. And there was a faller at the last. Unfortunately, he was running well at the time. Saint Palais went down at the last, and that didn't really help the King of Ryhope, as he was also having to be switched. He was, like I say, reasonably well beaten at the line, but I think this horse has got a lot of improvement in him. So please put him in your tracker. So that's the King of Ryhope, which is my final jewel. So follow those jewels. Have a great week ahead. Be lucky, and keep following the channel.